Okay, this is, we're going to start a chapter on the illusion of depth. Obviously, has no depth, it's just a piece of paper, but we can make it have the illusion that you can walk into it. Artists have been using these techniques since the Renaissance to trick the eye, so to speak. Okay, so it's all laid out for you here. You're going to read and be able to answer my questions. I may have like a little test, so I'll go over it with you. Okay, we use here the acronym POLARS, P-O-L-A-R-S, POLARS. And if you look at this diagram here of the polar bears, right, POLARS, P stands for page placement. So low on the page, you can see that the bears or whatever is closer to you. And as you go to the horizon line, look at how small that iceberg is. Very, very small. That's almost on the horizon line. And on the horizon line is a vanishing point, and which is totally just what it says, vanished. It's so small, it just vanishes. Okay, if you're coming down, like this cloud right here is closest to you. If you're, looking straight up from here, say you're here with this polar bear, you're looking straight up, this cloud is very, very large. And as you look down and go towards the horizon line, the clouds start getting smaller, and they get smaller until they disappear on the horizon line. So the top in the sky, the highest up, is the closest. The bottom, where the land is the closest. And where you put the horizon line is the farthest away from everything. Okay, so placement is important. Overlapping. Okay, if you look at this bear, his ear is overlapping that bear laying down. Now you can tell this bear is in front of that bear because he is blocking out that bear, part of that bear. So overlapping shows what object is in front and what object is behind. If it blocks it out, it's in front. Okay, so overlapping. So polars, placement, page placement, high, away from the horizon line, or low, away from the horizon line, and overlapping for the O, P-O-L, linear perspective. Okay, linear perspective is a mathematical system used to create the illusion of depth. We're going to get fully into that. It takes its own, probably its own unit, because you're going to have to learn things like horizon lines and vanishing points and orthogonals and so on and so forth for the vanishing point and for the linear perspective. But linear perspective is the mathematical part of it. Like these rays of the sun spread out, and that's linear perspective. We'll get into that more later. Okay, because that's deserving of its own chapter. Okay, so atmospheric perspective is simply when you're up close, like here or here, things are close to you. You look down here and you're looking up, and that's the closest cloud. They're going to have the most detail, and they're going to be the darkest parts of your picture. So you want to make sure that everything has a lot of detail when you're having something down front, like this bear is. He's even cropped off the page. That's how close you are. As we get farther and farther back, the bears get less detailed and get lighter. And linear perspective is as you get to the horizon line, things just get lighter and lighter and lighter until they vanish. Here, it would start off dark and get lighter and lighter and lighter until the vanishing point on your horizon line. It shows distance by the detail and by the illusion of the atmosphere, making it dull and lightening it. If you look through the atmosphere, there's all dust and whatnot, and the farther you look, the less clear things look. Right up close, you can see things very clear and much more detail. Okay, rendering is just using value to create the illusion of depth. We've been using that. Rendering can be, most of the time, rendering is soft shading. This is showing, this has been using hatching lines. They're very dark here, right? To show that the bear is, got dimension, and that this iceberg is thick. Same with this iceberg, and that this bear has a dimension to it. It's not flat, but yet as we get farther and farther back, the rendering or the value gets lighter and lighter. Even though it is showing that this iceberg is thick, the rendering is very light. Okay, that's part of the atmospheric perspective. But rendering is to show the darks and the lights to create depth. Okay, the next one is, that's rendering then. The next one is scale or proportion. So the larger something is, like this bear is very, very large. Of course, it's going to be placed lower on the page. The larger something is, the closer it seems. The smaller something is, the farther away it seems. So up here, this cloud would be very, very close because you're just looking up from here. And that cloud, you're looking way out. Over here, it would be smaller and it should get lighter. So scale or proportion or size has to do with whether or not it's close or far away. Now, there's foreground. Foreground is your what's really close and detailed. So everything down here is really close and detailed. Then you have a middle ground where everything is still able to make it out. It's not as clear, it's not as detailed, it's not as dark. And then you have the background, right? This is like right where the horizon line is. It's going to get very, very light right here. Then it's going to go the opposite, right? So it's very, very light right here. And then as we get up to the middle ground, this cloud would be a little bit darker. And then this cloud would be the most detailed, because you could look right straight up from this bear, and he would you would see this cloud with more detail and darker. So that's polars. That's the illusion of depth on a 2D surface. It's not real, but it tricks the eye. This skills that artists know: placement, overlapping, linear perspective, aerial perspective, rendering, and size, all help the artist to create the illusion that you're looking at something that's three-dimensional. Okay, if you look at this page here, I just put this for you. Your eye level is where the horizon is, horizon line, and it's usually where the sky meets the earth. And the farther up on the horizon, away from the horizon line, is always closer. And as it gets closer and closer to the horizon line, it gets farther and farther away. The opposite with the ground. It's closer down low, and as it gets farther and farther towards the horizon line, it'll get lighter and lighter with the aerial perspective, and it'll also get smaller and smaller. So down here, your assignment is to create in this 2D area here, a horizon line, and then color it in. I gave you some things here, but try to follow me more. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to put a horizon line. I'm going to just pick, I could pick it up here if I wanted it, you know, a small sky, you know, not to see the sky very much and have a lot of land. I could put it way down here if I wanted to have all the sky and then only see a little bit of the land. And I'm gonna kind of put it in the middle. Okay, so there, no, it wasn't quite the middle, but okay, so down low here, things are going to be dark. Because if it's coming from the bottom, and say it's cropped off, say I got a tree, and I'm right in front of that tree, and it's cropped off down here. I'm so close to the tree that my eye is just cropping this off. This tree would be dark. You would see the bark. Because it is close. You're looking right at it. Even though it is up in the sky here. If you looked up from here to here, you're right under it. That tree would be right above. You'd be looking at the tree and all of its branches right above you. So it's going to have a lot of detail. Okay, so now middle ground would be like in through here. So say my tree starts here. My tree is going to be smaller than this tree, of course, and it's going to be lighter. And maybe more of a suggestion for things rather, than detail. Get rid of this line here because that would be overlapping, right? So my tree with the aerial perspective would get lighter. It would also, with page placement, it would get smaller, size smaller. And now, as I get fully into the back, which is here, that's where things disappear. On the horizon line, that's where things disappear. So you really can't, if it's on the horizon line, you can't see it. So we'd have to put it down to be in the background. It's probably got to be about here or so. And you can have your tree really light. But even lighter. And small. Okay, so page placement. This is foreground, middle ground, background. Say we have things in the air, okay? And a bird maybe is flying like right above your head or so. You're standing here and he's like up in here above your head. He would be large. And dark. And then as you get further and further away, the birds, like this is the foreground, so this would be the middle ground. The birds would be lighter and farther away. And then in the background, down towards the horizon line where things vanish. He's way back here, barely can see him. Actually, I'm going to make him even smaller and lighter. And that's it. Okay, so that's the quick version. Don't go by this. Go by this. Try and imitate my presentation here. I think it'll help you. And then when you're done, you can color it in with colored pencils. maybe like a shrub. Just make some thatch. Making sure that the dark stays down. Okay, then for the middle ground, I'm gonna take and make some darker green. I'm gonna get lighter as I go up. You just don't press as hard. If I was using paint, I would use some white to tint my paint, but with colored pencils I can just push a little harder or lighter. To get that effect of it getting lighter. Okay, now I'm pretty far out, so I'm going to just get really light here around my horizon line. And I think what I'll do is, let me get some, since we are doing a sky, I'm going to grab a dark blue and a light blue, darker blue, and then a lighter blue. And I'm going to start at the top with my dark blue. And then as I get down towards the horizon line, I'm going to make sure that I don't push as hard with my colored pencil. And then I can add some very light bluish at the bottom. And if I had a tortillon or, you know, something to blend, a blending stick, I could blend it so that it's not so liney. You can make it even better by putting some brown. Let's see what we got here. Some, you know, brown. For your tree. And then as you get further away, lighter with the brown. And then I might even go with something like, make it almost invisible. To make it seem like it's off in the distance. Anyway, if I could, I would, maybe I can, erase my horizon line. And then kind of blend it. I don't have a blending stick, so I left a lot of, but that's about it. So complete this. Don't go by this. Okay, complete it like I did it.